In this video, we're going to talk about some of the other options that appear across the top menu bar of the operator control panel on the AccurioPress itself. We've looked at the machine screen before. We're going to start here, and what I'll point out on this screen is where it says reserve job here. This quadrant of the screen shows the status of jobs that are running on the machine, either the copy jobs or the print jobs. At the moment, the machine is idle, so there is nothing displayed here. If I move to the next tab across the top, we'll see that the job list comes up, and in the job list, the screen that comes up most of the time by default is the reserved job. On this screen, you'll see that this is pretty much a reflection of the information that we would have seen on the machine screen. It's just a bigger screen display of a little more information and more jobs shown. It's worth it to take a few minutes here to explain how this screen is going to operate. If the machine that you are looking at is running print jobs and the print controller installed on your machine is either the Fiery or the Creo print controller, you will typically not see a true display of what the job statuses are in the machine. The first line here will show the job that is currently running. One of the differences in the way that this machine runs when you're running from a Creo or a Fiery print controller is that the machine does not store any of that job information on the hard drive. It only uses the machine RAM in order to store and print that job. As a result, when you are printing from a third-party controller like the Fiery or the Creo, the time remaining is going to be based on what the machine knows about, which is only the 30 or so pages that the print controller has passed into RAM. The rest of that information is still on the print controller, and the machine doesn't know that job exists. So the job may have thousands of pages and be hours of runtime still remaining, but on this display for the machine, all you're going to see is it's 30 pages or less and probably a minute or less until it's complete. You will have to look on the print controller to find better information than that. If you're running a copy job or printing jobs when you have the Konica Minolta controller installed, those jobs are completely resident within the machine on the hard drive, so this information will be accurate and show an accurate status here. Next on this screen, we'll look at the hold job. When I click the hold job button, we will see here that we've got some jobs in a hold status on the machine. Once again, what information shows up here is going to depend on the type of print controller you have and the other capabilities of the machine. There are three conditions under which a job will show up here. If you've used the store button up here at the top that we will talk about later, or the copy button here at the top, you can from those buttons store jobs into this hold job area. The other thing that can put jobs in here is if you have the Konica Minolta controller installed, you can put that job to hold when you send it from the print driver, and it will stop here as well. We will talk about the operation of what you can do with these jobs in a different video. If we look at the output history is going to show jobs that have been sent and printed from the machine. You'll see here that these jobs are all complete, some information about it. This display is limited both by the time that has passed and the number of jobs that have printed. The most you will probably ever see here is the last 100 jobs that went through the machine, and the job itself does not reside here. This is just giving you information about the fact that a job came through the machine. If your machine is configured with a document feeder and a scan glass, you can also set the machine up so that you can scan, and if there was jobs that had been sent, it would show up in here. The last button on this row is incomplete history. You'll see that there is an incomplete here. The job was canceled while it was running. There are some other reasons why a job may show up here. Once a job shows up here, there's really nothing you can do with it other than look to see, oh, I didn't get my whole job, what might have happened to it. I'm going to look at the incomplete history button and see if I can see what happened to that job here. It may give me some indication of whether the job got canceled, whether something happened and the job never did finish running. Moving back up to the top, I'm going to go to the recall button. The recall button is a separate section that functions similarly to the hold queue that we saw before. In this case, we've got two different levels of information that can be put in here. At this level, we see that there's a public folder. There's other spaces. I could come in and say I'd like to add a new folder and give the folder a name. In this case, maybe I want to separate out jobs by department or give a user a place to show their jobs. And so I can create a new folder. I can put a password on that folder, so if somebody wants to store documents at the machine, and then when they walk over to the machine, they can put their password in and choose their folder and have those jobs accessible to print, then they can do that. When I come back out, we will see that I now have an HR folder in addition to the public folder. Within these folders, I can also come in and add further folder separations if I'd like to do that, or if I'm at this level, I can say that I'd like to delete that folder and remove it from the list. By default, the public folder is always here. There are the ability also here to include extra folders underneath of this. You can create subfolders here as well, and these folders that you create under this list can have passwords on them as well. Once again, there's a couple of ways that you can get jobs into this. I can use the store and the copy function to send to the hard drive, and if I've also got the Konica Minolta controller installed, I can put jobs directly into those folders. The next thing we'll look at is the store button. On the store button, this by default is showing that the destination is going to be to the hold queue, and I can change that if I click on the store settings to go to the hard drive store, which is the second option we looked at up here under recall, where I've got a folder structure that I can put in there. I can attach a file name to this job if I'd like to, and then I would use the document feeder on the machine, if I had a document feeder or a copy glass, to scan the originals, the hard copy, and actually put that into this folder so that I could then go back and print those jobs out. The next tab at the top is the copy. Once again, you have to have the copy glass and or doc feeder installed on the machine for this tab to show up and be accessible. When I've got the copy functionality on the machine and I choose the copy tab, this is the screen. I'll talk a little bit more about how all these different options on here work on a future video about copy. I will point to a couple of things here and say that I also have the ability while I'm making a copy to click this store settings, and once again I can tell it that I'd like to place a copy of that hard copy job as an electronic file in either the hold or the hard drive store, and use that job in the future to do reprints. And if my machine has the copy glass and or doc feeder, I'll have a scan tab and I can scan. This video is not going to cover very much about scanning. There will be a future video that talks about that. The basic operation of this is you have to have a destination set up. You have to choose the destination, and once you've selected a destination, you can use the scan settings button to come over and set up the information for your scan. In this case, we'll see that HDD is selected, so the hard drive. In this case, and in most cases on the AccurioPress line, the scanning is controlled by the print controller. So in this case, the machine that I am looking at here has a Fiery installed, so the scanning has to be configured on the Fiery as far as destinations, whether it's an email setup, whether it's an SMB setup, whether it's an FTP setup. That information has to be appropriately configured on the Fiery in order for those functions to work. In this case, the hard disk drive is the hard drive on the Fiery, and by default there's a guest partition. Like I said, I'll cover more about how this gets set up in a future video.